Hey everyone. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to divide some complex and imaginary numbers. Okay, so in this first example here, we have a negative 6i divided by an 8i. Again, you're going to treat I pretty much as a variable in this kind of question, and you're going to simplify using our polynomial operation. So you're going to divide the coefficients and then subtract your exponents on your I. Okay, so here we have negative 6 over 8. We know that would reduce, we could divide both of those by 2, and that would reduce to a negative 3 over 4. And now we have I to the first over I to the first, so we know when we have the same thing like that, those would actually cancel out. 1 minus 1 would be 0. So in this case, negative 3/4 would be our solution. All right, now let's take a look at one where we'll have to actually rationalize our denominator. Okay, so here we have 5 over 10i. Now, again, I represents that square root of negative 1, meaning we have a square root in our denominator, which we're not supposed to have. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to rationalize this by multiplying the top and bottom by our radical or our I. Okay, so 5 times I is going to give me 5i in the numerator. And then 10i times I is going to give me 10i squared in the denominator. Okay, so we're going to have 5i over. Now 10i squared, we know I squared from our prior videos represents negative 1. So it's going to be 10, and a negative 1 is going to replace our I squared. And we get 5i over negative 10. And we could reduce that a little bit further. 5 over 10 we know is 1/2, so it would be negative I over 2. Okay, and you notice when we do that, the denominator becomes a real number and our imaginary number moves to the numerator. All right, let's take a look at a couple more examples here. Okay, so up here, negative 15i divided by 3i. Again, divide the coefficients and subtract our exponents. Negative 15 over 3, we know that's going to be a negative 5. And then I over I, that cancels out. It's like I to the first minus I to the first is 0. So negative 5 is our answer for this one. Okay, the second one, as you see here in the denominator, we have that I. So we're going to have to multiply I in both the numerator and denominator. So that means we get 4i on top, 4 times I. And on the bottom, we get this negative 6i squared, which again becomes 4i over negative 6 times negative 1. Okay, I'm going to move our answer over here, give us a little bit more space to work with this. Okay, so now we have 4i over positive 6. And now we reduce our fraction or divide the coefficient, so 4 over 6 is going to be 2/3, and again, our I in the numerator. You could also write it like this as well, with the I next to it. That's also possible. Those are the same thing. Okay, a couple more examples underneath here. 2 over I, we see again I is in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply both top and bottom by I, and I get 2i over I squared. Moving on down here, 2i over I squared, we know again is negative 1. And 2 divided by negative 1 would be just negative 2i. And the last one we have here, negative 1 over 4i. Again, I in the denominator, so I multiply top and bottom by I. I get negative I on top, negative 1 times I. And on the bottom, I get 4i squared. Negative I over, again, 4i squared is going to become a negative 4 because this I squared is a negative 1. And my final answer here would be I over 4. Again, because these negatives would cancel out. And our solution would be I over 4. Okay, you'll notice in all of my answers, I have my imaginary number in my numerator. It should never be in the denominator in the final answer.